Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to day 3. As we talked about at the keynote 2 days ago now, this is the second time that we brought together everybody from all different brands. This is the first time, though, we've brought together some of our My Schoolbucks customers that use My Schoolbucks outside the lunchroom for other programs in the school. So I'd like to extend a special welcome to all of those folks that have joined us here for our My Schoolbucks Summit on day 3. One housekeeping item, we're going to send out a survey link here today.
We already did.
We already did, okay. As I said on Tuesday, we're a learning organization. We're always looking to try to figure out how we can get better, do things different, improve. Please take a few minutes today, hopefully not during one of the classes, but in between or lunch or something before you go, and fill that out while everything is still fresh. It will really help us. I've got the honor of introducing our speaker this morning. Dr. Melissa Hughes is a vlogger, author of Happy Hour with Einstein and Happier Hour with Einstein. Another round. She focuses on the application of neuroscience to improve the way we learn, work, communicate, and collaborate for greater success and overall well-being. So again, as we talked about on Tuesday, employee, team member engagement and enthusiasm, we thought this was a really good fit. Some of my colleagues have actually heard Melissa speak before, and she's done an amazing job explaining how the brain works and how to make it work better for us. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Hughes to the stage.
Thank you so much. I am so jazzed to be here, I have to tell you. So just to give you a little background as to my roots, I grew up in a little suburb outside of Akron, Ohio. And I went, it was a very Mayberry-esque community. We had one high school, one middle school, one elementary school, and everybody knew everybody. And in our elementary school, when we went to school, we met 3 people right off Jump Street. One was the gym teacher, because the gym teacher was also the playground aide. One was the custodian, because he's a good guy to know, and then the third one was the cafeteria lady. And I loved the cafeteria lady, and her name was Mrs. Cook. And I thought, how convenient. And I wondered, was she Mrs. Cook before she was a cook, or was she a cook before she was Mrs. Cook? The ramblings of a 5-year-old mind. Anyway, I grew up, and I went and got my teaching degree, and I ended up teaching right back at that little elementary school. And when I got back there, the custodian was still there, and the cafeteria lady was still there. And as a child, my favorite lunch was chicken noodle soup and peanut butter sandwich. Best lunch ever, right? And when I went back as a teacher, my favorite lunch was chicken noodle soup and peanut butter sandwich. And I remember having this conversation with the lunch lady one day with Mrs. Cook saying, hey, do you remember, like, when we were little, you guys used to put honey on the peanut butter sandwiches? And she said, yeah, we can't do that anymore because of budget cuts or nutrition or whatever, sugar, So I was like, okay, that was the best lunch ever. So, and today, even without the honey, best lunch ever. And from that day forward, she put honey on my peanut butter sandwich. Right? I know. So, but when we had that little exchange, she said something to me that just has stuck with me all this time. And she said, as old as I am, and as long as I've been doing this, you just cannot put a price on the feeling that what you do every single day matters to some other person. And I have thought about that for a really long time, ever since she told me that. And I've been out of the classroom for a little bit, because I'm very old. But she taught me some things. What I didn't know then, but what I know now, is that that little exchange that she and I had made my brain work better, and it made her brain work better. So that little exchange, less than 60 seconds, changed the neurochemistry of our brains for that day. That's very cool, right? So I've been doing a lot of work thinking about how the brain works and how to make it work better. And I started with a question. How do you transform an ordinary brain into an extraordinary brain? Because I was a teacher and I wanted my kids' brains to work as good as they could, right? I wanted them to just be amazing. I wanted them to hang out in the prefrontal cortex where all that higher level thinking happens. And what would have been nice to know then, which I didn't know then, was that when we're filling our brains with cortisol because we're all stressed out or frustrated or angry or threatened or in fear, our prefrontal cortex is actually shut down. It actually pauses because the brain says we need to allocate all of our resources to survival. And that's what's enabled us to survive, like extinction for millions of years. But if you really want to make your ordinary brain extraordinary, then all you have to do is increase your emotional investment. And you do that one of three ways. You do that by making the unfamiliar familiar, by making the expected unexpected, and by making the unconscious conscious. Now, over the next 45 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you how to do that. And I had a brief exchange with MJ from Tyler, and I said, how's the week going? And she said, it's great, but today is the day because we've got 5 hours of menu planning after you. She said, so bring it, girl. Okay, so no pressure there, but I'm going to bring it. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little 60-second challenge. And one thing you need to know about me is as bashful as I am, I ask you sometimes to play with me. Sometimes we have an all-skate. This is an all-skate. I need you to do this with me for 60 seconds. Do you say you will do this with me? Will you do this with me?
Yes.
Okay. So 60 seconds, all you have to do is follow instructions, and I'm going to start the clock. Ready? I want you to put both feet on the floor, shoulder width apart. I want you to drop your head just to a comfortable space. Close your eyes. I want you to breathe in for a count of 4, and as you breathe in, I want you to feel your belly expand like there's a balloon inside there. I want you to hold it for a count of 4, and then exhale slowly for a count of 4. And as you exhale, I want you to feel that balloon deflate. And then hold it there for a count of 4. Now, open your eyes. Smile. Collective ah. That feels better, right? Okay. I have something to confess. That 60 seconds that we just experienced together, or 55 seconds, I changed the neurochemistry of your brain. Because Mary told me you guys needed it, right? MJ said we need a better brain for the rest of the day. So here's what happened. In less than 60 seconds, that simple breathing exercise, the smile, and that kind of collective, we're in this together, ah, changed the neurochemistry of everyone's brain. In geek speak, this is what happened. We actually activated our parasympathetic nervous system and we deactivated our sympathetic nervous system. Our heart rate slowed down, which enabled us to conserve energy. We deregulated our limbic system and we decreased the production of cortisol. And while you were doing all of that, there was music playing in the background. And that music was Marconi Union, and the song is called Weightless. That song is significant because it is the #1 song to decrease cortisol, stress, and anxiety. And the reason that we know that is because the people that composed Weightless, Marconi Union, they did it with sound therapists, and the way they created the harmony and the structure of the notes and all of that, they actually found that it resulted in a 65% reduction in anxiety and a 35% reduction in physiological resting rates. So now you are more relaxed, you have more oxygen to your brain, your cortisol has been shut down a little. We always have a little cortisol going on there. And you have increased your focus. All of that. And you know what? That little smile he gave you, that was a trick too. Because every time you smile, just something as simple as a smile, it releases, you have a feel-good party in your brain. It releases good neurotransmitters, those good chemicals. For starters, it releases dopamine and serotonin, just with a smile, right? Not only does it relax your body, but it also lowers your heart rate and your blood pressure. And when you smile, what happens is the brain recognizes that you're activating those muscles required to smile, and it tells your brain, happiness, alert, we're happy here. And when we're happy, when we feel good, our brain works better. Literally. Our cognitive function is better when we're positive than when we're in a neutral or negative state. Not just us, but our kids too. So think about, let's take it down to like the learning level. Our kids learn better when they're in an atmosphere that makes them happy. Grown-ups, their brains work better when they're in an atmosphere that makes them feel happy, right? And have you ever noticed that smiling and laughing are contagious? Try it. Tomorrow, when you are in the airport, here's your challenge. Ready? Smile at random strangers and watch how many smile back. It is almost impossible not to smile back when somebody smiles at you. And just in that simple exchange, costs you nothing, a few seconds, you actually can smile back at yourself knowing that you have inspired the release of good neurochemicals in the brain, right? All of that happened in smiling, breathing, and reshifting our focus. So now we are ready, okay? This picture is a picture of a mural that's in a bar in Princeton's campus. It's called The Alchemist and the Barrister. It's tucked away on this little side street, and I had the opportunity to stumble into that bar, and I saw this mural, and I thought, how cool is that? How delicious would it be to sit at the bar next to Albert Einstein and talk about what we now know about the brain? Talk about the technology advances that we now have that he didn't have. You know, when you think about what separates a great brain like his from the rest of us, we all have the same stuff between our ears. How come his works so much better? And think about what could happen, what he could be doing today with all of the technology that we have today. If you think about his life, it's pretty interesting. He was born in 1879. He didn't speak until he was 4 years old. His teachers told his parents to kind of just find him something to do. Like, just let him find something to do. 1905 was actually his miracle year. It's called Annus Mirabilis, and that's Latin for the year of miracles. And he was 26 years old. And I just want you to take a minute, go back in the recess of your mind, think of yourself when you were 26 years old. What were you doing? Where were you? Did you write 4 papers that would literally change the universe? Literally. That's what he was doing. And when you think about, what enabled him to envision flying through space on a beam of light? Like, who does that? What's interesting is he died in 1955. And there was a young pathologist who got to do his autopsy. Albert Einstein was supposed to be cremated, but they did an autopsy first. And this young pathologist, his name was Thomas Harvey, and he did the autopsy, and he's getting ready to prepare the body for cremation, and he just said, I can't let this brain, I can't let go of this brain. We have so much to learn from this brain. It's impossible. So he did what any of us would do, and he took the brain, and he put it in a mason jar, and he put it in his duffel bag, and he took it home. And then he said, so what are we going to do now? Because if I want to study this brain, and I want people to know that this is Albert Einstein's brain, I've got to tell the family that I stole Albert's brain. So eventually he fessed up. The family was not happy, but they did let him study the brain, and he pulled this all-star team of neuroscientists from around the world. He started slicing and dicing Albert Einstein's brain, sending it off, to figure out what made his brain so different. And fast forward to 2013, and a team of scientists in China actually discovered that there were some differences between Albert's brain and the rest of ours. One is that his corpus callosum was freakishly large compared to yours and mine. And the corpus callosum is this thick bundle of nerves that runs through the center of the brain, and it connects the right hemisphere with the left hemisphere. And we used to think that you were right-brained or left-brained, and we know that that's all bullshit, that we use our whole brain for most of the things that we do most of the time. But the corpus callosum is really, really important, because that bundle of nerves that lets the two hemispheres talk to each other, that's what enabled him to envision riding through space on a beam of light. That's what enabled his creative, artistic, visionary side to talk to his analytical, science, and mathematical side, right? And his brain was just super, super connected. The other thing that made his brain different than ours is he had a high density of glial cells. And glial cells are really important. There are probably more glial cells in the brain than any other kind of cell. And if you think of glial cells like glue, it actually lets all of the neurons talk to each other during the day. But at night, the glial cells act as our housekeepers. And when our brain kind of shuts down and our cognitive function isn't firing like crazy, the interstitial spaces in our brain actually expand. And then the glial cells come in and they sweep away all the neurotoxins and dead cells, that we've killed with cortisol throughout the day, right? And so if you ever wake up and you feel really foggy and fuzzy and you didn't get a good night's sleep, it's because you got too much garbage in there. You didn't go to sleep and let the housekeepers come in and do their job, right? So you need to go back to bed. In the 90s, George H.W. Bush and the National Institutes of Mental Health and the National Institute of Health all collaborated and decided that they were going to call the 90s the decade of the brain. And the whole sole purpose of this was really to enhance public awareness of what the brain is actually capable of. And we learned a few things from this decade. There were lots of things that came out of it, but there were a few constructs that really changed the research of the brain and the studies that we would do and everything that we've learned today. And what is this idea of neuroplasticity? And you know what that means. That just means that the brain is malleable and it changes over time. But what you might not know is that neuroplasticity is intense, prolonged, or repeated experiences physically change the brain. So what does that mean? Let's take repeated. If you repeatedly do things that make yourself smile, that make yourself laugh, that make yourself feel good, what are you repeatedly doing in your brain? You're creating the conditions for all of those good chemicals to be released. And we're going to talk about where those chemicals go, and that's going to be really important in just a minute. The other thing that we really learned from the decade of the brain was that this idea of neurotransmitters. And we always knew that there were chemicals up there, and that they were serving as chemical messengers used to transmit data between our neurons and between our neurons and the rest of our body. But what we did not really realize until the decade of the brain was that those neurotransmitters actually activate and deactivate certain parts of our brain. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then finally, this idea of emotional contagion. And it's not surprising to know that if you're in a good mood, the people around you are probably going to be in a better mood. But if you're in a lousy mood, the people around you are going to catch that lousy mood. We always knew that. But what we didn't know is, thanks to mirror neurons, if you witness someone in a good mood, if I witness you and you're in a great mood, my brain is going to generate those same happy chemicals as your brain just because I see you. Why? Because as the most evolved species on the planet, we know empathy. And I know what you're feeling when I see you in a good mood. I know how that feels because I've been there. Likewise, I know how it feels to be in a lousy mood because I've been there too. If you're all stressed out and angry and frustrated and you come all up in my space, I'm going to get all those bad chemicals too. And that is just not fair, right? And we give those to our kids as well. There were studies that were done with groups, and they paid attention to these groups that were passing on good, positive mood, that had this good, positive mood, and that was the contagion, and also negative moods, and that was the contagion. And what they found that they didn't just spread the mood, but they also spread the chemicals, and beyond that, they spread the different work behavior. Because the groups that spread good emotions, positive emotions, they displayed more cooperation, better interpersonal conflict skills. They just performed better on the tasks they were doing. And one of the tasks was about managing money and allocating it to different people in the group. And what they found was the groups that had the most positive, that were spreading the most positive emotion, allocated the money more equitably. What that means is they were more fair with one another. We're in this together. So you want people to work together as a team, they got to share positive attitudes. You want people to be divisive and inspiring conflict. Those are the groups that are spreading all of the negative chemicals. Okay, one of my favorite quotes from Albert Einstein is, "The mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size." And what makes that quote so fun for me is that he said that in a very figurative sense. He was just philosophizing. But now we know that that literally happens. That when we open our minds to new ideas, when we learn things from other people, when we feel like we're part of a group, when we feel like we're contributing members of that group, our brain physically and chemically changes. That is pretty cool. Okay? Let's do a little Neuroscience 101. We know some of these. So dopamine, we all know that that's the reward and pleasure chemical. And when we do something and we feel really good about doing that, feels really good, we get a dose of dopamine. But it's not just that it feels good. It's also a trigger to do it again. So it's not just, ooh, that felt good. It's, ooh, that felt good, let's do that again. So an overproduction of dopamine is what leads to addiction. Because you keep wanting it and wanting it and wanting it and wanting it. An underproduction of dopamine is unmotivated or not showing any kind of initiative. So if you're feeling like you're really unmotivated one day, well, you need a little bit more dopamine. Serotonin is the overall well-being and happiness drug. It's the don't worry, be happy. A lot of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut, so what we eat has a lot to do with serotonin. Simple carbs like pastas and potatoes and breads, B12, B6, foods high in B6 and B12 can actually stimulate the production of serotonin. Sunshine can create serotonin. I grew up in Ohio, and the sun doesn't shine from, I don't know, November to April, and everybody wonders why everybody's all grouchy. And then April Fool's comes and the sun comes out, and we're like, oh, there it is. So you're not feeling, you're feeling a little blue, find some sunshine. Chocolate. Good news, right? Yeah, I know. Okay. Also physical activity, just standing in your own space, getting some movement going. You don't have to go run a marathon, but just physical movement, generating some oxygen flow in your body can generate serotonin. Standing and clapping, moving to a song, all of those things can generate serotonin. Oxytocin is my favorite drug. It is the love drug or the cuddle drug, and it's generated during sex and cuddling and hugs. But the biggest boost of oxytocin comes during breastfeeding. Why is that? Because there are neural pathways that are dedicated to bonding with other human beings. And the first time we bond with another human being is when a baby breastfeeds. A mother and baby share that experience of breastfeeding. And here's the big thing about that. Because the need to relate, to be emotionally and socially intelligent, has enabled the human brain to evolve to be more complex than anything. And that sense of belonging and being accepted and being nurtured, right? That's really important to us. And if you think about what is the opposite of belonging and acceptance? Rejection. And guess how the brain processes rejection? It processes rejection the same way it processes physical pain. And physical pain, if you reject somebody emotionally, you might as well go up and bop them in the nose. That's exactly what you're doing in their brain. Okay, I gotta move on. Endorphins, excitement, confidence. This is, we usually think of endorphins like runners get endorphins with a runner's high. Any runners in here? When you break through that wall, you get that runner's high. But endorphins are really associated with stress and pain. Those are the two main drugs with endorphins. And then finally, cortisol. We all know that cortisol is the stress hormone. We need a certain amount of stress. We really do. Because it's what prevents us from walking out into traffic. It's the brain's way of saying, there are dangerous things out there. There are bad people, places, and things. That's how we stay alive. But an overproduction of cortisol, which is actually a steroid hormone that is transferred through the blood, which means it affects all kinds of things in our body, not just our brain. All right, so let's talk a little bit about laughter. So laughter is one of like these areas of research that I just absolutely love. And the study of laughter is called gelotology. And what we now know is that laughter reduces blood pressure and increases white blood cell count. What does that mean? The more we laugh, the more we get a boost to our immune system, right? It also produces all of those really good chemicals, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and the dopamine. Because when you laugh with somebody, you feel comfortable with them. You feel like you're in a group of people that care about you, that you're okay, you're safe, right? It decreases cortisol, and most of all, it is contagious. It is really hard. Same thing as smiling. Mirror neurons kick in, and it is really hard not to laugh when you see someone laugh, right? I'll show you. This kid, you will laugh at this kid. It's impossible not to laugh at that kid, right? And so that's emotional contagion at work. And what that means is this is like seeing somebody else be so happy, and people can stimulate the release of those happy chemicals in our own brains. Let's talk about surprise a little bit. The brain loves surprise. Surprise is one of those things that like jerks it and says, pay attention, there's something really important here. Sometimes it is a good surprise, and sometimes it is a bad surprise. But the brain loves novelty. And the pleasure center releases dopamine and noradrenaline, which actually stimulates greater focus in the brain. And what we now know is that when we experience surprise, we experience emotional intensification up to 400%. What does that mean? Well, when I get flowers on my birthday, I say, oh, that's really nice. You remembered me on my birthday. And those flowers are beautiful. But when I get flowers on a random Tuesday just because you are the sexiest girl on the planet, I'm like, wow, that's awesome, right? Same flowers, same thing. The emotional intensification when it's a surprise is so much better. Same thing with bad news. Let's say I'm with a company and they're restructuring, and there's a good likelihood that I'm going to lose my job because they're looking at synergies and they're looking at redundancies, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose my job, and 6 months later I come in and they go, yeah, your job has been eliminated. That sucks, right? Well, if I walk into work one day and they say, you know what, here's a cardboard box, see ya, your job's been eliminated. Same outcome. Both people lost their job, but which one hurts more? The bad news that's a surprise. And that is because of emotional intensification. I'm going to play this clip. This is one of the best surprises on the planet, and it's in your space.
Hey Lynn, can we have you come sit over here? This generation, Bishop Minogue, you guys care about people. These are some, I wish I could curse, but I'm not going to, because we're in a Catholic high school. You guys are some cute fun kids that really care about people and want to be a part of good stuff.
The Duke Nice Project came to our school trying to make someone's day really special, who just makes all of our days every day. Her name is Lynn, and she works in our cafeteria. Lynn is really the perfect person for it. Like, Lynn's like a friend to me. Like, after lunch, I go and talk to her. She's just like a friend to all of us.
I'm Lynn Marner, and I work for Roundabout Catering.
When you guys chose perhaps the best lunch lady of all time.
I love it here. They're always getting together. They always have Like the signs they put up today, dude, be nice.
During our interview, she's like, I love the school. They're like, look at all these dude be nice signs. Like they're doing something. And I'm like, yeah, you have no idea.
She doesn't really even know how much we do care about her, so it's important for her to know that what she does every day really makes a difference.
The reason that these are so great is because it's you guys doing it. Like, she doesn't know me, like she's like doesn't care if I give her something, but coming from you guys, like that's what makes it special.
We're gonna surprise Lynn with food and gifts and stuff to just show her how much we appreciate her.
Memphis, Tennessee, that's where I grew up, and I like barbecue, any kind of barbecue.
We have her dinner, which we made her favorite, Memphis barbecue.
She's just elderly and she's feeble and she says everything hurts. I try to go back at least once a year. It gets a little pricey.
I've always looked up to Lynn. Someone has a really bad day, she comes out of nowhere swooping in, a hero without a cape basically, and just makes that day better.
What do you think they'd say about you?
I have no idea. I would like to know that though.
What's up? We're here at Bishop Minogue in Reno, Nevada. I'm here with my boy Scott Bakovich. We're about to say thanks to an amazing lady named Lynn.
Lynn has been serving the students of the school for years, and now it's their turn to create an amazing experience for her.
We've been planning this meeting for weeks. It's about to go down. I'm super proud to be Bishop Minogue student.
Hey Lynn, can we ask you come sit over here? Alright.
Oh my
On
God.
behalf of the Bishop Minogue students, we want to thank you for everything you've done for our school and making people smile every day, and we want to thank you for everything.
Basically, just want to tell you we love you and appreciate you. So enjoy some barbecue. The kids are going to dine with you. One more time for Lynn! One last thing. I know you like to go home to Memphis and see your family, and I know your mom hasn't been great help, but we want you to be able to see her as much as possible. So we've got Southwest gift card for you to get home as soon and as much as possible.
Oh, the feels, right? Okay, how much oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine was happening in there, right? All kinds of stuff. So not only was that a surprise, but that was also about gratitude. And gratitude is such a powerful agent on our physical and emotional health. And what we know, gratitude is perhaps the largest body of research in positive psychology right now. We know that when we practice gratitude, it acts as a natural antidepressant. And what happens is it sends neurotransmitters to the center of our brain called the bliss center. So by practicing gratitude for someone else, you actually poke the bliss center in your own brain. How cool is that? Right? So when was the last time you wrote out an old-fashioned thank you note to someone in your space? Or walked up to somebody and said, hey, you know what? I am so crazy happy that you are part of this team. Because when you do that, their brain gets a boost and your brain gets a boost. That's the thing that I don't know a lot of people don't realize about gratitude is when you express gratitude to somebody else, the gift is greater for you. So when you're having an especially bad day, the best thing you can do is go say thank you to someone in your space. Go express appreciation to someone else because you'll know you're poking your bliss center. And right, I mean, you just can't even beat that with a stick, right? So the thing about gratitude is that it happens in the very, very center of our brain. The other thing is that It involves the thalamus, the hypothalamus, and hippocampus, and you guys probably don't care about that stuff as much as I do, but here's the meaningful part of it. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that manages a lot of our memories. So if you want to make something memorable to someone, include gratitude in that experience, and that will encode it deeper onto the brain. There was a study done by Robert Emmons, who is one of the fathers of gratitude. And how great would that be to be your title, the father of gratitude? And he gave a whole bunch of people the challenge of a 21-day challenge to keep a gratitude journal. And every single person in this study, there were like 700 people in this study, and they were all ill. Some of them had terminal illnesses, some of them had just had surgery, and so they were on a recovery track. Others were dealing with, chronic aches and pains or whatever. But he said, for 21 days, I want you to keep a journal. What he found was those who kept the journal had decreased physical pain, increased optimism toward their goals of recovery. So, when you feel better, you do the things that are better for you. When you feel crappy, you do the things that are crappy for you. Like when you're having a really crappy day, that's when you go grab the Ben & Jerry's and you snuggle on the couch and you shut the world out. That's the time when you really need to be around people, having really healthy foods. They also demonstrated better quality and duration of sleep and greater overall well-being. Another name, if you're interested in any of this the way I am, that you should know is Daniel Kahneman. And he is a psychologist, and he's written a bunch of books. But the one that this construct really started was Thinking Fast and Slow. And in Thinking Fast and Slow, he explains that we all have the psychological present. We throw that around a lot, like be present. I'm going to be more present, right? Well, Kahneman says the psychological present is actually 3 seconds. And if you do the math, there are 20 per minute, and that means there are 25,000 per day. How many of those set psychological presents do you pay attention to? It's impossible to pay attention to them all because there's an avalanche of data and stimulation coming into our brain. But if you stop and pay attention to some of the good ones, then that is what stimulates all the good stuff happening in your brain. Before I close, I told you I could talk all day about this stuff, but they won't let me because you have 5 hours of menu planning ahead. If you get kicked out about this as much as I get kicked out about this, these are my newest books, Happier Hour with Einstein, and then there is a 28-day full-color gratitude journal that helps you build gratitude into your day, just like 15 minutes a day. So if you think about, if I do 800 minutes over the course of a month, and it makes gratitude a normal part of my routine, and it will actually change the chemistry of my brain. Would I do that? Me. Okay, let's go back to the original question. How do you transform an ordinary brain into an extraordinary brain? Look for those ways that you can make the unfamiliar familiar. Like make this, they say the unknown is always scarier than the known. It's true with kids, and it's true with the people that we work with. So make the unfamiliar familiar. Make the expected unexpected. Learn how to embrace and engineer surprises in your day with yourself. Take a different, take a chance, take a risk, do something different for lunch. Call up somebody that you wouldn't normally say, hey, let's go grab lunch, and do that with some new friend. Explore a different park, somewhere you never go to. But you can also create and engineer surprises for other people. And it doesn't have to be as elaborate as the Dude Be Nice project. You can surprise somebody with a tea bag and a thank you note. And you know what's cool about that? Is when you give someone a tea bag and a thank you note, they're going to use the tea bag, they're going to keep that thank you note. And every time they look at that thank you note, they might just slide it into a drawer. When they open that drawer one day and they see that thank you note, their brain is going to get the same jolt of good chemicals as it got when they got it the first time. That's cool. I'm going to leave you with one last thing. This is another Allscape, our last Allscape. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. Today, when you're out there on that 5-hour weekend was, but yeah, that was cool. Okay. Okay. Yeah.